All right, so picture this. Someone says, hey, we need a robot, but not just any robot. This one's got to assist surgeons with those super delicate, minimally invasive surgeries. I mean, are we talking sci-fi movie here or what?
Sounds like the kind of challenge that gets robotics engineers fired up. And you're spot on. To pull that off, you'd need a whole team of those specialized technicians you send us info about.
Robotics Engineering Technicians. That's right. Those are folks we're diving deep into today. Gotta say, the stuff you sent over about this career path is fascinating.
It's a field that's always evolving, always pushing the boundaries. And like you said, it's not a solo mission. You've got to be able to work together, really understand those engineering blueprints, the diagrams. It's like speaking the language of robots, but you got to do it with a whole crew of experts.
That makes a lot of sense. Building something that complex, you need all hands on deck. And it's not just the teamwork aspect that's intriguing. The materials you sent over really highlighted how many different industries are using robotics these days. It's gone way beyond just automating factories, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's like you said, way beyond. Remember you were asking about autonomous systems earlier.
Right, caught my eye.
Well, think of it like this, those self-driving cars everyone's talking about. That's autonomous systems in action right there.
Yeah.
And those systems, they need skilled technicians to build them, make sure they're running smoothly and safely, the whole 9 yards. The need for those skills, it's only going up from here. And it's not just cars. We're talking healthcare, farming, even exploring the depths of the ocean.
Wow, okay. That's way cooler than anything I had in mind. But let's bring it down to earth for a second. Let's say I'm working on that surgical robot project we were talking about earlier. What's an average day look like for a robotics engineering technician on a team like that?
Well, for starters, you might find yourself building and testing the incredibly precise mechanisms that make up the robot's arms. And these aren't just any arms. We're talking about movements that have to be accurate down to a fraction of a millimeter. So you're working with things like potentiometers, those sensors that measure even the tiniest movements. It's intricate stuff, that's for sure.
It almost sounds like being a watchmaker. But instead of a tiny watch, it's a robot that's going to be involved in surgery. Talk about pressure. And that's just the building part. What happens when something goes wrong? Because let's be honest, machines and going wrong kind of go hand in hand.
That's when those troubleshooting skills really come into play. You've got to put on your detective hat, dive into the schematics, figure out what the robot systems are telling you, and pinpoint whether it's a mechanical issue, an electrical one, or maybe even a software glitch. And speaking of software, knowing a little bit of programming, even something like Python, can be a lifesaver in this field.
Okay, gotta be honest, that does sound a little intimidating, but also incredibly cool at the same time. So where does someone even begin if they're interested in this kind of career? Is a 4-year engineering degree the only way in? I mean, it's a lot to wrap your head around. You'd think you need like a supercomputer for a brain to handle all that.
Well, a supercomputer wouldn't hurt, but you're right, it can seem overwhelming. But honestly, a healthy dose of curiosity and a real knack for problem solving can take you a long way. And a 4-year degree in engineering, mechanical, electrical, robotics, any of those, that's definitely a great foundation. But it's not the only way in.
Oh, good, because I was about to say.
A lot of community colleges and technical schools, they're offering associate degrees or certificate programs. And they zero in specifically on robotics engineering technology.
So it's a faster track to get those hands-on skills.
Exactly. And that's huge in a field that's changing so fast.
Speaking of changing fast, I remember the guide mentioned that robotics engineering technicians, they have got to stay updated, right?
Yeah.
I mean, new stuff is popping up all the time. How do you even keep pace with that?
It's like having a VIP pass to a tech conference that never ends. But seriously, it's really valuable to think about joining a professional organization, something like the Robotics Industries Association.
So you're plugged into that network, get to go to workshops, hear about what's new and next.
Yeah, exactly. And don't forget certifications. Those can be huge, like the ones from the RCSA. That's the Robotics Certification Standards Alliance, by the way. It's a way to show employers, hey, I've got the skills to back this up.
It's like, it's not just what you know, right? It's also who you know and being able to prove it.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's talk job outlook. All the stuff you sent, it paints a pretty rosy picture for this career, but is the demand, is it the same everywhere? Or are there like, I don't know, robotics hotspots?
It's a good question to ask.
Yeah.
The overall picture. Yeah, it looks really strong, a lot of growth projected. But you're right, some areas are definitely ahead of the curve. Think about the places with a ton of manufacturing already, or, where those tech companies are really pouring money into automation. If you're up for relocating, Those bots can open up a lot of doors.
What about for those of us who are less geographically inclined to move? Like, is location still a deal breaker these days with so much remote work?
It's becoming less and less of a hard line, which is great. A lot of robotics companies are coming around to flexible arrangements, especially with remote monitoring and diagnostics becoming more common. That said, even if you can work remotely, being close to where the action is, it can still give you an edge.
It's like you're in the mix, easier to network, find those opportunities to level up your skills. Makes sense. Okay, now for the question I think everyone wants to know. Are the robots coming for our jobs?
Ah, the age-old question.
Because it seems like the better the robots get, maybe the fewer humans you need to build them.
It's a natural worry. Nobody wants to feel like their job's on the line. But here's the thing. Robotics, it's not really about replacing humans altogether. It's more about, giving us a power-up.
I like that, giving us a power up.
Think about it. A robot might be great at doing the same task over and over in a factory, but who do you think designs it? Who programs it, keeps it from falling apart, fixes it when it does? That's where we come in.
So we should be looking at robots less as competition and more as tools. Like, they free us up from the repetitive stuff so we can focus on the more creative, complex, interesting work.
Exactly. And let's be real for a second. There's a certain coolness factor here that you just can't deny.
Oh, absolutely. Who hasn't dreamed of building their own R2-D2?
Exactly. So, you're not just working on any piece of tech, you're working on stuff that's pushing the limits of what we thought was possible.
Okay, you've sold me. So for someone listening who's thinking, this sounds awesome, sign me up,
Yeah.
what advice would you give them? Where do they even start?
It's all about diving in and exploring. Don't be afraid to just get your hands dirty, even if you feel like you're just starting out. There's a ton of great resources online, even in your local community. Look for online courses, robotics clubs. You can even grab a DIY kit and tinker around at home.
There's something so inspiring about that, just letting your curiosity lead the way.
It's true. And who knows, maybe you'll uncover a passion, a talent, something you never even knew you had.
It's like, forget solo robots. We're talking about building the ultimate dream team, right? Humans and robots side by side tackling those big challenges.
Now you're getting it. And who knows what we could accomplish with that kind of teamwork. Seriously, think about the problems we're facing: climate change, making healthcare more accessible. You name it, robotics could be a game changer.
Okay, now that gets me excited. That's the kind of future I want to be a part of. But let's switch gears for a sec. Talk about career paths. Let's say I put in my time. I've been a technician for a few years. I've got the skills, the passion, all of that. Where do I go from there? What does moving up in this field even look like?
Now that's where things get really interesting. You might start as that entry-level technician, totally. But down the line, with experience, maybe some extra certifications, you could be leading teams, becoming the go-to expert for a specific type of robot system.
Oh, so you can specialize.
Absolutely, or even dive into research and development, be on the cutting edge of what's next. Some technicians, I've seen them use their experience as a springboard to jump over to automation engineering or get into software development specifically for robots.
So you can level up, but also level out, branch out if you find something else that grabs you. I like that kind of flexibility. Okay, last question, and it's a big one. Someone's listening, they're ready to take the leap, get started in robotics engineering technology. What's the one piece of advice, the most important thing they need to know?
Honestly, nothing beats getting your hands dirty. Yeah, reading about robotics, that's one thing, but to really get it, you got to build something, program it, break it, and figure out how to fix it. Don't be afraid to experiment, make mistakes. That's how we learn best. There are so many affordable kits out there, online resources too. It's incredible. Honestly, a little curiosity and a willingness to tinker, that can take you a long way.
I love that. Curiosity and tinkering, music to my ears. So to everyone listening who's feeling that spark, remember, the future of robotics, it's not happening in some far-off lab somewhere. It's being built right now by people like you, by people who ask questions, explore the unknown, and maybe build a robot or two along the way.
Who knows? Maybe you'll be the one designing those next-gen surgical robots.
Yeah.
Ones that turn sci-fi into reality.
Wouldn't that be something? And on that note of futuristic possibilities, we're going to wrap up this deep dive into the world of robotics engineering technicians. Hopefully you all found this insightful, inspiring, and who knows, maybe it sparks something in you, got you thinking about your own path. For all the resources we mentioned, be sure to check out the show notes. And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep into the topics that set your brain on fire.